This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie, and I have Dave on camera with me, the often objectified but truly talented cameraman. And we are coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. We will later be joined by our team in the Masai Mara as well. Tristan's on foot here. There's all sorts of exciting things to look forward to. And while you're looking forward to those things, you can think of ways and questions. Not ways. You can think of questions to send through in the normal way. If you don't know what the normal way is, it is on hashtag SafariLive on Twitter or in the comments section of YouTube. I think those are the only ways, as far as I know. Yes, not by pigeon. It will take us a little while, and because this is live, if you do send a question through by pigeon and we answer it, then you know that something is very, very odd. Something very strange. This is a bizarre train of thought. Maybe if you were at Skukuza, if you sent us a question by pigeon and it came here, then maybe. It would have to dodge all the African harrier hawks though, and all sorts of other things. So don't actually, you know what? Let's just make this clear. Don't send your question through by carrier pigeon. We would. If you managed to get it here, we would devote the entire 3 hours to your question, if you manage that. So there you go, a challenge for those of you pigeon enthusiasts. I have a cunning plan this morning. I have a very cunning plan, a plan so cunning that Tristan and I devised it last night with great glee. We think there is a chance that there might be a hyena den on Djuma still. We don't really know this. We've discovered that there is a hyena den right on the northern boundary of Little Gowrie, which is most likely our clan. We have demanded pictures post-haste. We have in fact suggested that all guests are abandoned this morning at neighbouring lodges and all guides race immediately to the hyena den to take pictures of the hyenas themselves. But until they do that, which might have been an unfair expectation on our part, we are going to go and check out, and some of you are going to laugh because you've been saying it for a while, the termite mound that Tingana was so interested in. The fact that Patrick yesterday on the Safari Lives episode, with great skill, managed to find both Corky and Hosanna at one point at exactly the same time, means that there's a possibility that there's something around there. Now, Tristan's checked Gwen's old den, and this is probably absolute gobbledygook for those of you who are new to the safari. Don't worry, you'll catch on. It's really simple. There's a hyena called Corky. There was a hyena called Gwen, but she's dead. Unfortunately, very sadly, because she was quite a lovely hyena, but she's no longer with us. Hosanna is a leopard, and Little Gowrie is a property to the south of Djuma where we cannot drive. Pretty much sums it up, I think. As concise and clear an explanation as I could provide. All animals have names, not all of them, obviously, we can't name every millipede. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I do have to say something, and that is to tell Tristan, before I send you across to him, that those tracks that we saw this morning were not buffalo. I mean, were not lion, they were buffalo. So, now that he's out on foot, I'm sure he'll appreciate that little tip.
Okay, well, good news then, Jamie. That's, I suppose, they are buffalo tracks. Buffalo are always a good thing if lions were. We can hear lions roar a long way away, and also good that you were execute. Now, as Jamie mentioned, my name is Tristan on camera. I've got supervision this morning, and we are going to be out on walk, and we're going to go see all the little things that we can find. We're going to try and see if we can look at some flowers, maybe some insects, and then maybe even we'll get lucky and we'll be able to track down one of the larger animals out in this particular area. Who knows, maybe we'll come across those buffalo. And we got kind of a little excited just now when we saw a stream of impalas kind of running past us, and they were all stotting. Now, for those of you who don't know what stotting is, essentially stotting is when an impala runs and it kind of kicks its back legs up. Now, often they do it, obviously, sometimes by themselves, but it often can be a sign of predators that are around. So you can often get a sign of things like wild dogs, because they'll show those dogs when they stot like that, that they are actually fit, healthy individuals, and that makes them very difficult to hunt. And so you'll kind of see this running impala and all this kind of going on, and often then dogs chasing behind. So we thought maybe they were coming because there was a stream of them, but there's some more impala kind of all spread around here, and they're all looking quite relaxed. I don't think the dogs are here. It was just a brief moment in time where we thought, could we get wild dogs on foot to start our morning, which would have been absolutely epic. But anyway, we'll see what else we can find. We're going to just kind of take it as it comes this morning. It's a beautiful morning to be out. In the meantime, though, we're going to send you back up. Well, not back up, we're going to send you up all the way to Kenya so that you guys can say good morning to David, and I wonder what he's going to be up to.
A very good morning, everybody, and Jambo from Kenya, from the Mara Triangle. It's a lovely morning, and my name is David, and me on camera is Archie. How are you all doing? Welcome to a morning drive. My plans today is to look for the big things only. Pakedams, I want to look for elephants, buffaloes and rhinos. It will be accidental if I see lions, but again, out in the bush, you never know what you see. It's such a cold morning for us, and I have kept my Masai shuka very close. 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to be putting it on because I don't want to catch any cold or any flu this early morning or this beginning of the year. And hopefully we'll be seeing lots of exciting stuff. And as my friends told you, Jamie and Tristan, questions, comments are always very welcome. Hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. It's still rather dark here, as much as shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning, but it's rather still too very dark. We need the day to open up a little bit more for us to see game. But of course, should we see something interesting, we got our usual special camera, infrared camera, that will help us to spot some game. All right. Let's see how our day looks like. We had a lovely day yesterday, SafariLive. We saw a lot of activities, a lot of actions that we had the previous week, and hopefully that will continue until the very end of the year. Okay, anything we catch on the road using our light, special light, we'll always switch off and then use the special camera for us to bring you what other animal we get on the side. Hyenas, I'll be surprised to see hyenas this morning. Lions, we have the Ololo pride that lives around here. And who knows how things will turn out this morning. In the meantime, we'll take you back to South Africa, to Tristan, who says he is looking for small things.
Indeed we are. It's always, like I say, one of the best things about being out on a walk is the ability to be able to watch the ongoings of things that you miss when you drive. So you'll kind of drive along here and you would never notice this kind of process happening. Or you might notice it happening, but you wouldn't notice the level of movement that is actually taking place. I mean, there's more little termites here than there's probably animals that we are going to see through the course of the entire day on a game drive. So it's an incredible thing to watch. Basically what we've got at the moment is we've got our termites expanding their mound. Now they have a mound that is pre-existing already, and this is now the expansion of it. And after the rains that we've had, essentially this is when the building phase starts. And so they are taking particles of soil as they're excavating underneath, and they're then bringing it and they're starting to attach little particles of soil everywhere to try and raise the height of this mound. And essentially this central column is going to be the little chimney area that's going to help with the sort of movement of air and to keep this mound from getting too hot or too cold. And so they build around that, and they're going to mix each little particle of soil with saliva and feces, and that's going to cause a little concrete to form. Now, I'm actually sitting on what is the edge of their pre-existing mound at the moment. So where we are, you can kind of see it slopes back behind me, very, very sort of shallow depth in this particular mound, but there is a little one that kind of comes along. And this is very, very hard. If I tap here, you can see if I push, nothing is going to happen whatsoever. Now, I can't do the same on this area here that's just been started. If I push this, I'm going to end up breaking it. It still hasn't set yet, so it requires a bit of sun and a bit of heat in order for this to bake, and it's much like a clay pot essentially. When you make any sort of clay pottery, you'll be able to mold it and manipulate it, and it will be soft. But as soon as it gets baked, it then goes into the hard form that you can then use it from day-to-day purposes, and it's exactly the same with these guys. Now, Laramo, you say they look unexpectedly shiny. Well, they are fairly shiny animals, I suppose. I mean, I've never really thought about their shininess of a termite, but they do have a bit of a glisten to them, particularly their head area. They've got this kind of orange little head that's kind of glistens in the sunlight, and it's interesting to watch termites, and for a number of reasons. Is what you've got here is you've got a whole bunch of workers essentially that are going to town building their termite mound, but on this side you've got another grouping that is moving up and down over here, and these guys are doing a different job. These guys are going to be trying to harvest food, so they're going along and they're going out into the wilderness areas to go and try and look for all kinds of food that they can eat. Now remember that you get different types of termite species. Some are going to eat vegetation and others are going to be fungus eaters, that they'll basically defecate after eating a plant substance, and then they will grow fungus on that plant substance that they will then harvest and actually feed on. So it depends on the termite, but they'll essentially go and grab material, and then they use little tunnels, which this one here is a little bit incomplete on this side. Sorry, Seb, these are actually probably better ones. These are all little tunnels that they've used, and that's protection for these guys to be able to go back and forward to a food source without having to worry too much about being fed on. Out here, there's going to be a number of predators for these guys. Of course, during the day, there's a lot more than there are at night. In the daytime, we'll find that these guys will be hundreds and hundreds of different types of predators that will be out here, particularly birds. And Josh, you asking, will leopards actually eat these guys? So, not these particular ones. I've never seen a leopard go after these. I have seen leopards eat winged owlets, so the hatching termites that come out when the rain starts, that are breeding termites. They will come out, and you'll find that the leopards will gobble those up from time to time. It's not a common thing to see, but they do it. So it can happen. But funny enough, these guys, the period of activity that we're seeing is actually more during the night than what you see during the day. And I was saying there's a lot of predators during the day in the form of birds, but there's also predators at night for these guys. So obviously we know things like aardvark and pangolins and these kind of things target mounds that they can dig open and eat, and honey badgers, and those are nocturnal creatures. But one of the creatures that we very seldom talk about, that you'll often find in a termite mound waiting for various insects to come out and not always hunting these guys specifically, is a thing called a tailless whip scorpion. Now, whip scorpions are actually really kind of common in this area. We very seldom see them because most of their time is spent in mounds. And actually, I was talking to Steph the other day. He said the other day that he came out onto quarantine and he tested a thermal camera and an infrared camera on a whole bunch of mounds. And he said the amount of whip scorpions that he found when he was on quarantine was quite something. So it's quite interesting. Hopefully one day we'll be able to kind of show you guys all of those whip scorpions because they're really incredible little creatures as well. Right, I think we'll carry on though. We'll leave our termites to themselves. They're going to start ceasing to move too much. They'll probably try and close this up before all the birds get too active. And so while we leave them to do that, let's send you across to Jamie and see how she's getting on in her search for the hyena den.
It took this to me with a degree of shame and embarrassment. I don't actually 100% know where that termite mound is. I know Tristan did tell me, but I did that thing where I asked him a question and then switched off while he was answering and only half listened. So just past the multi on the fire break. But if Emma could do me the enormous service of just double checking with him that I've got that correct, if it's between the Muruati and the Edward Road on the fire break, please and thank you. You've been there. Never mind. We're all good. We're all good. It's going to take a bit of a dodgy signal patch, so hold on to your hats, folks. We'll just do a quick detour onto Twin Dams. Whoops. I'm also looking for Hosanna, by the way. So it's not just it's a mission with multiple purposes. I'm just going to get out of this dodgy signal patch quickly. Hello, Mbalalas. Good morning. It smells like waterbuck. David wants to know about the Nkuhumas and if they are still around. They are not, to the best of my knowledge, unless they walked back in. After we left them last night at the end of Safari Lives, they went all the way to, wow, Twin Dams is looking full. Let's have a look-see quickly. They went all the way to Buffelshoek and then almost to Manuleti, actually. My, what a beautiful pea green color. Go ahead, Trist. Copy, copy. Thanks very much. Just on the western side of Leadwood. Am I being really dumb here? Oh, I got you. Copy, thanks. Dave's been there as well. Cool. Alright. Sorry about that. Just having a quick chat with Tristan to ensure that I know where I'm going. Linda says it is pea soup. It is pea soup indeed. Obviously conditions are right. I'm going to go onto the dam wall because I can't get to the termite mound yet without going through a complete, I think at this point in midsummer, signal black hole. Obviously the conditions are perfect for the spread of this algae, which hasn't happened in any of the other water holes. There's a little bit at Buffelshoek Dam, but Twin Dams has always, to the best of my recollection, been more prone to being pea green, to be honest. But it's good to see that it's this full. The reason being, it's going to relieve an immense amount of pressure from the hippos in the Chitwa waterhole, because there it is far too overpopulated. Okay, we're going to go off in search of our termite mound. We're going to send you across to David while we do that. He has a special mission on his mind. He's going to go and look for a rhinoceros. I hope he succeeds.
Very good. We're just coming up to see whether you can see an elephant. It's not very far from me. It's a little dark, but we're seeing an elephant from a distance. Let's see if we can put it on the frame. And I actually think it's too dark. And there's a mother there and a calf. And very strange because you don't see any other herd close to them. Oops, there's another one just popping up somewhere. So it could be a mother, a calf, and maybe a first cousin. And you notice they don't look the normal colors of elephants, we know, because it's still very dark where we are. And we are in infrared. Infrared is a very special camera that will just shine some invisible light to these pachyderms, or these big animals that I said I'd be looking for today. Ellie, sleeping Ellie, and you can tell either she had a very long night, but see the position she has put her calf. So she's just putting them there to make sure that her calf is pretty safe. Good morning. So the normal green bushes we know here are all looking also black and white. Again, as I said, because we're in a very special camera called infrared. Very relaxed cow there. Not sure that could be her first calf, but I would guess from her size she looked a youngster, so most likely this could be her very first calf, and that's why she's keeping her very close. And when the elephants keep quiet like that, they're always digesting what could be happening, who we are and what we are up to. She was eating earlier by the time we got here, and you can see she's kept the calf in a very special position. Elephants ideally will go in, small herds or big herds, anything from 5, sometimes up to 50. Yesterday we had some like 70 elephants together, not very far from where we are, where we guess there could have been 3 or 4 herds that had come together. And ladies and gentlemen, should you have any questions or comments, please send them through. Come you wondering what is interesting, why it is still very dark here? Well, in the Mara, or in the Mara Triangle specifically, we are on the East African time, and we are 1 hour ahead of Juma. So South Africa is within the Central African time zone, so they are always 1 hour behind us. So here it is still dark, and in the evening sometimes when you're still, or when Juma is still in color, we are always already here in dark because of that 1 hour difference. All right, but I'm sure in the next, 30 minutes or so, we shall be having the normal natural light and be able to see the lions if we are lucky. But again, I had said, today I want to concentrate on the big mammals. So I have ticked one, because if we talk of the big pocketams here, they are either elephants, buffaloes, and rhinos. So I might have ticked maybe a half tick for that elephant with her calf, because it could be looking for bigger herds to have a proper tick, and then I'll be left with the buffaloes and rhinos. But again, we'll always plan this way while here in the bush, and then things turn out the other way. Kenny, have I ever seen an elephant yawn? Good question, because I'll give you a good answer. No. I'm not sure that makes sense to you. I have not seen. We'll always see them opening their mouth, and we'll never know whether they are yawning or they're just stretching. But unlike, say, cats we can always say for a fact we see them yawning almost every other time. I'm talking of lions, cheetahs, leopards, but an elephant? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've seen an elephant yawning. Very good. So there's a bush I want to go and investigate, see whether I've seen some elephants there or something moving in the bushes. Let's first go back to the bushwalk and find out what type of antelopes they got.
Well, not so much bushes as watching our herd of wildebeest that we get here on quarantine. They obviously spend 99% of their time on this open clearing during the course of the night, and then as it starts to get warmer and the light starts to get brighter, so we start to see them kind of moving and heading off to go and kind of feed for the day and find the sort of shadier spots. But at the moment they're very perturbed by our presence. They're not very happy about the fact that they've seen us on foot. Very difficult to conceal oneself on quarantine, so you've got to kind of walk along, and these guys have very good eyesight when it comes to trying to spot predators and various other animals, and you'll find that they kind of pick you up quite regularly. And what you can see at the moment, though, is that there was an alarm call that was kind of sent out by one individual, and now they just kind of split it out a little bit, and everybody's facing in different directions. And so when they can't really kind of perceive how many of the threat there is, you'll often see wildebeest do this. They'll kind of clump together a little bit, and then everyone will face in different directions so as they can kind of protect themselves and make sure that there's no kind of others that have flanked around to try and chase them. It's obviously, with them, biggest predator out here would be lions, and wild dogs probably is also a big one. And so, you know, both of those animals tend to be pack animals or pride animals, which means there's normally more than just the one. You can see a little baby moving around in there. Sonia, these are blue wildebeest. The black ones don't occur here, even though they have a black look about them. When the sun does hit them, they get that bluish sheen, which gives them their name. Also, their horn structure and their beard is very different to that of the black wildebeest. The black wildebeest's horns don't go kind of out to the side. They point forward and up more than they do to the side, and that will kind of be an indication. And also, their beard, like I say, is a much lighter color than what you see on these guys. These guys have the dark kind of black manes that come, or beards that come down. And it's different to the wildebeest that David sees in Kenya with the migration. Those also have white on their beards and are known as white-bearded wildebeest as opposed to these guys. But you can see they're just slowly making their way off quarantine. They've been moving the whole morning since we kind of started. They've been kind of crossing more and more towards the sort of west, and they often do head that side. Now, Kathy, you say muscular beasts. Well, it's funny you say that because a wildebeest is a lot stronger than people give it credit for. Most people think of wildebeest being these kind of animals that are easily killed by lions and various other animals. And yes, they do get predated heavily, but they are incredibly powerful individuals. They're quite muscular, particularly in this sort of front section. Obviously, they do have those longer front legs, which allows the rocking motion, which obviously is part of the whole migration process and running long periods. And that whole gait is far more energy efficient, but they do also have those hugely powerful kind of torsos because of that, and they're a lot more powerful than people give them credit for, much like a lot of the other animals out here. In fact, everyone always thinks, wild animals, especially even small ones like the antelope, are not very strong, and it's actually the complete opposite. Those kind of animals are really kind of quite powerful and can be ones that you've got to be careful. In fact, there's lots of people that get killed by bushbuck and all those kind of smaller antelopes. Daniela, do the herds vary in seasons? Well, yes, and the major reason kind of for it is that the herds will change because of the calving season. So here in South Africa, calves are mostly born end of November through December, sometimes as late as January. You can see they're just kind of drifting off, and I think there's 2 in this herd at the moment that are moving around. But they basically, the herd size can effectively almost double when it's calving season, and then you'll find that they kind of diminish as predators get them. And this year has been a very poor year for this wildebeest herd. Last year was a great year. They managed to raise young ones through the year quite well, whereas this year has been a little bit more tricky, and it seems like they've only got the 2. I think last year we had 5 in total, 6 maybe. Whereas, like I say, we only got 2 this year, which is less of a yield. But in terms of adults joining and coming and going, that's not really seasonally dependent. Here I suppose if it's very dry and there's water issues, then wildebeests who require quite a bit of water, they will actually kind of move in, and they will try and kind of move into a place where they can find resources, and they can then kind of split out again in the rain season. But here the habitat really is the biggest limiter of our herd sizes, is because we just don't have great habitat in this part of the world, and therefore very small groupings of wildebeest that are spread out quite far from one another. Good. We're going to carry on and see what else there is around. We'll try and figure out if there's anything that's been moving in the night. In the meantime, back to Jamie, who's still on her den search.
We have arrived, and there is no sign of any hyenas. But if Dave could do a marvelous job of zooming in on the digging activity around this particular termite mound burrow, I've got a very, very strong suspicion that the initial assumption was correct, and that this is a warthog burrow. It just doesn't look quite right. The way that's wet soil that's been excavated from within the tunnel itself. I don't think that it is. Oh well, it was worth a shot. Look, the tracks are all coming out of Djuma and into Little Gowrie. All of the hyena tracks that I've seen this morning. So I don't know. That white thing, by the way, when I first drove in here, I had this sort of brief moment where my mind decided that it was a foam nest. Although it would have been a foam nest put there by a very, very silly foam nest frog. It's not. It's a bleached giant land snail shell. Dave had to correct me there, because that's really what it looked like. Okay, well, it was worth a shot. We'll find out. Once the guides get to that hyena den on Little Gowrie, we'll find out whether or not it is our hyenas, or if we need to keep searching. We're still going to trundle along the fire break, because the fact that Corky was here yesterday is the only real clue that we have as to where that den might be, and it's not a particularly good one. Just need to turn around. So we'll have to just keep trying. I'm very cross with them, taking it personally that they decided to move just before I came back from leave. It is rather. But it was around here that Patrick had Hosanna as well. So we'll look for him at the same time. This is going to be a bit tricky. No, we can't think. Ooh, I don't think of Hosanna as a consolation prize. Right, I'm going to rodeo my way out of here. Let's go to Tristan, who apparently has a whole bunch of wings.
Well, Jamie, at least you confirmed our suspicions and whatever, and our general thought patterns. I mean, we thought mostly wildebeest, warthog burrow, but it's always good just to double check and make 100% sure. Now, you will see that there is all kinds of things lying at the base of this marula, and you might be thinking to yourself, what is going on here? So essentially, all you are seeing is thousands and thousands of wings, essentially, from termites. So if I pick these up, you'll see that these are all little wings structures that have come off winged allets, so termites that have hatched, come out, and they've flown and then try to meet up with a partner to be able to start a new mound. Now, each of these little granular sort of sections that you're seeing over here and through, so you've got to be a bit careful you stand here, these are all the beginnings of mounds where they've excavated down, and so this will be where the queen and the sort of male termite will have mated and the egg-laying process starts, and this is how termite mounds start. Now, why there's so many here is a question that I was asking Rex, because they've all congregated pretty much around this edge of a huge marula, and so there's probably two. Well, I mean, we're hypothesizing more than anything else. Rex was saying to me, and he believes that whenever you find a big tree like this, this is a place where there is a lot of water, and so water is obviously vitally important in terms of keeping soil soft for them to be able to actually build and to develop their mounds. And so that is probably one thing. Also of the opinion that I wonder if it's not also to do with the fact that there's a crown here, and when the mound is getting started, water is your worst enemy. And so if you've got a crown of leaves and basically a protection factor, so when the rain comes, while it will kind of drip and fall down, it's not going to really kind of wash away nearly as much, and the root structure that is here will bind the soil a little bit better. So that's kind of how I think about it, but Rex says to me that he reckons more water than anything else. But it is absolutely amazing the amount of insects that we must have here that have lost their wings is absolutely incredible. It's like a carpet of wings all the way through, and you can see nothing really disturbed it, so none of these were kind of predated upon. But if we kind of drag them, I mean, you can see that is hundreds and hundreds of little flying allets that have kind of landed here and somehow gotten into the soil. Isn't that cool? Now, what amazes me about this is that these kind of little things hatch for a very short period of the year. These wings develop for that process, and they're not just dropped off and discarded, and eventually over time they will just kind of decay and go back into the soil as a little bit of nutrients. There won't be much in that, but there will be a little bit. It's really quite cool to kind of see as much as this. You don't often see these kind of congregations out here. Most of the time what you'll just see is a few little wing sets here and there, so a very cool kind of find. The other thing that's quite cool about this tree is, I was just noticing while I was sitting here, is that it almost looks like a leopard has climbed this tree at some point in time. If you have a look here, there's very kind of old scarring that has taken place. There's a few little what look like claw marks as a leopard has kind of tried to go up and into the tree itself, and so very, very old ones, but there does look like a few that has taken place. And I know at one point Karula and Konuma and Quarantine, well, hence his name, used to spend a lot of time, and I wouldn't be surprised it's one of those sightings. It's a really nice marula for a leopard to spend time in. Good, so we'll leave our basically thousands of carcasses and various other things, and we're going to carry on. In the meantime, though, back to David, who's got something that will be soon attracted to this very spot, but not because of those, but because of the tree.
Well, thank you, Tristan. Keep tracking, and we have always given you the name of the leopard whisperer. Hopefully you're going to get one on foot, which will be pretty exciting. I had done a half a tick for the elephant. You remember when we started, they said you're going to be dealing with the big pacadams today, and we saw one cow with her youngster, and I did half a tick, but now I want to do a full tick, having achieved this particular group of Ellis, because this is a bigger number than the 2 we had. This could be over 20 where we are. A whole family still in infrared because the light hasn't come through very well. And this is hard we saw last night. I'm sure Em, you can remember, because there's one particular female that was missing a tail. So, but last night we had these Ellies together, about 70, almost to 100 of them together, and they must have been maybe 3 or 4 herds, and they were in a particular area, and they either love that area for whatever they get, the type of grass they get there. Either it's very nutritious, have lots of vitamins or minerals in it, because we counted roughly 70 to 100 elephants together, and that was a huge number by any standard. And what have happened this morning, they have split into the relevant herds, and each herd with its own leader, who should be a cow who is called a matriarch, and then you'll have all the cows with their youngsters. This particular youngster, I think I remember her because she was missing a tail. If she is not the one and had a little stump at the back, she must be the one I saw last night. So what they have done, they have traveled from where they were another 5 kilometers or 3 miles or so towards camp, because we're not very far from our camp. So they must have traveled overnight, and to keep their body morphology as it is, they tend to eat a lot. So I would guess they must have been eating the whole night. Hello there. Okay, you're missing a tail, but I can see you got your 2 tusks still popping up, which is a good sign. You're not missing anything else. Cool morning, as you said, starting at 60s Fahrenheit. You notice they are not flapping their ears at all, which is pretty good for them. So most of the grass she's eating, or they are getting now, is what we call the red oat grass. And I'm sure if we'll have better light, or when natural light is up, we'll be able to see how it looks like, because currently we are still in infrared. It's still a bit dark here where we are, pacing up to catch up with the mother. Connie, good morning, and you'd like to know if female elephants ever go off to start their herd. Ideally not. Ideally not. What would happen is, if maybe the herd becomes too big, they may split. So, say a herd of 30 may split maybe into 2. And we might have one herd of 15, and then the other one will remain. So the new herd will definitely develop their own matriarch. But unlike lions, where you get lion males going to start a new coalition or going to join another coalition, female elephants tend to remain in the same herd. And if they go out, it will just be splitting into different herds. So there's another vehicle there, and the vehicle going away there, we call them balloon chasers, because early in the morning in the Mara Triangle we'll see a few baskets up in the air, and those are the chasers, or we'll always be taking them some breakfast. It's another cow here with her youngster. Very matriarchal societies, elephants they are. And we're gonna hope we get better, or the natural light comes and we'll see these elephants differently. Not very far from now, maybe in a couple of minutes. And talking of big things, I want to now move forward, look for other bigger things. I think I've ticked elephants, now look for either rhinos or buffaloes. But let's go back to the person who is looking for smaller things.
We are still following up on the little one. So we were just checking these marulas because I was fascinated by the collection of wings. And you can actually see something that you don't see very often at all. Now, I was saying that normally they'll meet up, a male and a female, and they'll essentially mate, and that will be the start of the mound, and they normally excavate down. But this is the process of males and females following one another in order to probably mate. Now watch it. It will sniff out the female, and then it latches on to the back end. There you go. See that? And then they kind of move around. Then there's lots and lots and lots and lots of them kind of all over this tree at the moment. And so what's interesting to me is that who were kind of sitting following them, and a lot of them are actually going up the tree, following each other around, and then coming back down again. And it's almost as though they're kind of securing their partner, and they'll kind of move around, and it's something you don't see very often. In fact, this is the first time in many years that I've seen reproductive termites actually in the little pairs that they're in, and the whole tree is covered by pairs of these little reproductive termites. Here's another pair up here, there's down at the bottom, so they're kind of all just trying to pair off and find each other, and then they're going to basically follow one another. Eventually the mating process will take place. Now, in terms of how this all works in the mating process, I'm actually not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure how they kind of clasp one another, and whether or not it's the kind of normal insects way, or if there's something different about them, but it's not something you see every single day. Even Rex was quite surprised when he saw it. He said he hasn't seen them doing this. And what we were thinking is that why they might be going up this marula is that there could potentially be a dead part of this tree somewhere up there, and that's going to be a much safer place for them to start building a colony, especially if rains are coming. Then it's obviously a much drier place up in the tree than it is going to be down in the ground. But it's incredible to actually see how many of them are moving around. They're just pretty much all over, kind of going back and forth and sort of following one another, and there's a lot of this kind of movement of one behind each other all the go. So, child of the universe, we were just talking about this now, is that it probably isn't too different to ants. Essentially, the female is fertilized, and then she will produce eggs throughout her life, and those eggs will, obviously through chemical receptors and pheromones that are pumped throughout the mound, she will be able to work out what individuals or types of eggs she's being laying, whether it's workers or soldiers or anything like that. So it's a difficult kind of process that takes place, and I don't fully understand how the initials part of it works in terms of this little male finding the female, and whether or not his sperm is deposited onto her and she keeps basically packets of it that she can use at various times, or if there's a constant fertilization process that takes place throughout. But something I'll go and kind of read up on. It's also, it's been a while since I've even talked about termites, so I've got to remember all these things that you learn as you go along. So we'll try and go and kind of read up on them. But very, very intriguing to actually be watching the two of them. Sorry, Emma, I didn't catch what you were saying. James is asking, is there any? James, you're asking if there's any butterflies around. So far, I haven't seen any, James. I mean, as you know, I always look out for them. Brent and I used to love butterflies and the challenge of finding them, but I haven't seen any yet this morning. I have a funny feeling, James, that while the rest of the insects are really starting to amp up, and we're starting to see, oh, that sun is very pretty in the background there. We've got this kind of orb of orange that's coming up through the marulas at the moment. But while, the other insects have kind of gotten going, it seems as though the butterflies have been a little bit slower to start. I have seen a few. I mean, I've been seeing citrus swallowtails, we've been seeing the African vagrants, but I think there's really, at the moment, the vegetation, while it's increased on a lot of trees, the low-lying vegetation is still quite slim, particularly that a butterfly can feed off. There's not a huge amount of flowering plants just yet, and so butterflies, obviously, we know, like to kind of be on flowers and those kind of things, and the best places to find them is often there, or on grass stalks that come out, and the grass hasn't reached that length yet where it's easy to find resting butterflies wherever you look. And so I think we'll see them hopefully coming a little bit later. We've had a really poor kind of 2 summers of butterflies. It's not really been great. Last summer particularly was very, very poor when it came to butterflies. So I'm hoping this year will be a lot better, and hopefully, the wetter conditions that we've had already will hopefully mean that, these guys come out. Good. We're going to walk towards the sun. We're going to see what else is there. Like I say, we're just ambling around quarantine. I'm loving the fact that we can see all these little insects and various other animals that are around. I don't want to kick myself. In the meantime, though, Jamie is on the hunt now for something different that is spotty. It's not a hyena, but rather she's looking for a cat.
We are following alarm calls. So while we were moving a bit further on from that den, or that burrow that we were checking, the baboons started barking, bah, from the Mulwati direction, just where we are now, and then the impala started, bah, bah. So this leopard's right here somewhere. I don't know if it's Tingana or Hosana, it could be Tundi. it's Tundi, we're in trouble, because she loves to be in that thicket there. She stranded me once in there, good and solid. Took me in about... Now the impala have stopped. Let's just do one more circuit. Oh, that's beautiful, Dave. You just quickly, okay, alright, Dave. You are allowed... No. I was gonna give you even longer than that. Surprise sunrise, it's beautiful. Dave has been talking about it for a while, so I sympathize with him. Somewhere here there is a leopard. They were all looking into this drainage line of elephant carcass. The problem with baboons is that they chase leopards, and I'm not looking at you at the moment because I'm actually focused on trying to find this sneaky cat. Now what probably happened when he was spotted by the baboons, or she, was that it went flat and belly crawled its way along this drainage line to stop the alarm calls. Because leopards don't particularly like being seen, and they really don't like to be seen by baboons, because baboons and leopards have something of an enmity. Leopards do hunt baboons, but in the same breath, baboons are capable of tackling them and taking them on. What is that? Is that... I'm pretty certain... No, it's a leopard, isn't it? Here, look, Dave. In that drain...
Well, sorry about that. Once in a while we'll get some gremlins, and Jamie just disappeared, but luckily I am here, and with very good news. And instead of continuing looking for the big pachyderms that I was talking about, well, this lioness here interrupted with my plans for this morning, and this is one member of the Olololo Pride, and she's a girl just laying in the grass there. And if you look carefully now, we have our natural light in the morning. Good morning, lioness. Are you sleepy? Are you dozing? Or are you just enjoying your morning? Okay, let's go very quickly to Tristan.
That is a quick link, because obviously we've just been discussing butterflies. So James, you wanted to see a butterfly, and basically we found one literally a few seconds after we linked away, which is quite ridiculous in many respects. But it looks like one of the orange tips. I would guess small orange tip would be my initial feeling. It's tricky because obviously you guys are going to be able to see a much better view than what I can see from the naked eye. We're having to stand quite far away because it's quite flighty, this particular individual. But we do get 3 species of orange tips here quite regularly. So smoky is one, sulfur is the other, and then you get small orange tips. Now, small orange tips often have a much cleaner wing than what underside of the wing than what you see from the sulfur and the smoky. But it's tricky for me. I mean, I'll have to see a screenshot before we can properly identify it. And James, you know your butterflies quite well, so you'll be able to confirm if I'm right or if I'm wrong. But really nice to see. You find these guys, these are one of the orange tips and scarlet tips and purple tips. A lot of them move around, and they love quarantine. Quarantine's a great place for them. There's lots of different things that they can kind of feed off and land on, and so they're probably one of the more common species of butterflies that we start to see, particularly in open clearings like this. And it's such a nice sign to see these guys once again. You can see typical butterfly shape. So unlike moths that will sit with their wings down, butterflies always wings up and folded against one another, and generally the underside is a lot less bright than the top side, and the reason for that is basically flash coloration. If they're going to be predated upon, the open side, or the side that flies, the predator will see that coloration, and then when it stops and folds up, it's looking for something completely different, and it's much harder to actually spot them. It's also going to be display, obviously used in courtship. You'll find more colorful when they open, that they can do intricate little displays with that too. But very cool little things. It is beautiful, Lisa, and this is why, you know, a lot of us that walk around typically prefer summer for walking. Is this exact reason right here, is that there is so much more beauty that comes through in summer. You get the greens that are a lot more lush, you get a lot more movement within the ecosystem, and there's a lot of really pretty insects that we get out here. I'm seriously hoping that we can start to find the rainbow shield bugs again. Those are absolutely incredible in terms of color. So, Carol, you're talking about moths and butterflies, and I was just saying to you now that one of the main differences is that the butterflies sit with their wings up and moths with their wings down. Typically, butterflies are also a lot more diurnal than moths. Moths mostly nocturnal, although there are some outliers that are diurnal moths that will come out during the day. The antenna of a butterfly and a moth is completely different. So a butterfly has a long club-like end to their antenna, whereas moths have feathery antennae. So that's an easier way for you to kind of remember, and that coupled with the wings and the sort of period of the day typically can get you to whether you're at a butterfly or a moth. But very cool. Now these guys, so as you know, everybody, all the butterflies and moths will have various diets. A lot of them are very specific to certain plants, and it helps with them to be able to survive. So something like a monarch is a perfect example. A monarch will be a butterfly that will try and find toxic plant like the milkweed, where it will spend a caterpillar stage and it will actually acquire those toxins, so that when it goes into its adult form, that it's able to stay safe from predation. You also find there's things like lunar moths that are specific to certain plants. There's all kinds of things. So every kind of moth or butterfly's food source in terms of when they're in a caterpillar stage is different. When they become adults, you'll find that butterflies will kind of effectively feed a lot on very similar flowers. So you'll find lots and lots of butterflies going to the same flowers. Funny enough, when I was in the Congo, which is, if you like butterflies, one of the most epic places to go. You kind of go through these openings and clearings in the forest, and there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of butterflies that all kind of are on the roads and anywhere where there's any minerals or moisture, and in fact even anywhere where the civets defecate. So civet and hyena dung, hugely used by the butterflies in that forest for the minerals that they're not able to get out of some of the plant life. And there it's just crazy to see the kind of diversity and how every kind of butterfly is in different places, and they all feed off the collective kind of scat of these predators. And when we found the one area, we had, I reckon it must have been maybe like 9 or 10 different species just on one little pile of civet dung, which is pretty insane. Now, sorry, I just wanted to see. Oh, it's a little mushroom, or fungus that's coming up. So I was walking along and I saw this bright white thing, and I thought to myself, is this an egg that has somehow gotten out? But here is a little fungus. You can see if I poke it, it's still got a little stem that is attached and hasn't grown too tall yet. Now, which particular mushroom it is, I'm not quite sure. I'm very, very bad with fungus and mushrooms, I must be honest. It's not something that I know much about at all. Taylor, funny enough, was pretty good with them, actually. She kind of used to get a book out and try and work out what they are. But in my case, I'm not very clued up on mushrooms, if I should be honest. And we don't see too many here. Our area is not great for fungus, or fungi, should I say. Once again, if you go into the rainforest, it's ridiculous the number of fungi that you get there. They are just literally everywhere. There's just bits growing all over the place. Good. Into the sun we march. What else there is? In the meantime, though, back up to David. I wonder if he's still with the Olololos. I hope he is, and we'll see you all a little bit later.
Well, it was very interesting to see Tristan having butterflies, because once in a while I've seen lions jumping to catch butterflies in there. Not sure whether they would always want to eat them or just play with them. But lions, anything meaty, anything that has protein, they have always known to try it out. Now, one girl has joined the other, and these two females belong to the Ololo pride. for those of you who could be joining us now. We're in the Mara Triangle in Kenya. And these two girls, either one of them got 2 cubs or both of them have each 2 cubs. About a week ago, I saw them not in this particular area, not knowing even they had shifted, because the area where they give birth, either they have, relocated their cubs to another area, because I've gone there for the last 3 days and have not seen anything. Now, here they are, and they're trying to hunt a reedbuck that had a youngster too. But of course, I would guess the reedbucks would have been too fast for them, and they did not bother going for it. So what I'm thinking, these 2 lionesses must have relocated their cubs to this particular area. Where exactly, I do not know. So what I want to do is just to drive around here and maybe listen if we can hear any cubs calling, and that would be very exciting. So they're right there, and I was thinking they would hunt, but that's what they have not done. So we're going to leave them to enjoy the sunrise this morning and see if I would be able to catch up with the rest of the pride. It's always very big pride. It's the largest pride we have in the Mara Triangle. We are talking of 16 in total. I want to show you a gully here on the left, and there's this gully where I would think it's very ideal for them to hide their cubs. You see that area to the left there? It would have some little caves down there, and I'm imagining if they have relocated their cubs from the previous den, they would have come around this area, because it's not very far from where they are. It's about 20-30 meters. So I'm imagining they have chosen one area that if it rains, the water doesn't flow towards their cubs, because I think they're just about a week old. And it could be so exciting to see a face of a lion cub popping out of that particular area. So I've been keeping quiet for a couple of minutes to see whether I could hear any meow or any cat calling, but none at all. But this is the area I would imagine those cubs would be, because from where they were initially from the previous den is about 3 miles away. So I wouldn't think these lionesses would be here and the den would be that far. They would not have, they can't leave them that far, because they know the challenges they face of other predators like either hyenas or leopards. I'm not sure I missed that question, but I think either I was saying earlier, these 2 lionesses, either one of them has 2 cubs or each one of them has 2 cubs each. So if they get bigger and they get the courage to be brought out by their mothers, we'll be able to see the 2 cubs or maybe 4, who knows. And this just reminds me of my other favorite pride of lions, of the sausage tree, which we got 2 females there that we're expecting they'll be having cubs very soon. Cash should like to know whether that little gash there or valley is caused by earthquake. No, I mean the Mara, one side of the Mara is formed by what we call the Western Rift Valley. So we think those are the tectonic plates that could have faulted way back, and even today, as much as we don't get lots or heavy earth movements like years back, we still get little earth movement or tremors coming, but on the Richter scale it's very small. So it's not an earthquake, and I'm not sure we get earthquakes in East Africa, so it's not an earthquake. And then because of rains, it has kept eroding, years and years, and it has gotten deeper. All right, need to move and so they'll be able to catch their other members. 14. Okay, let's find out what luck Tristan is having now in Juma.
Well, not so much flowers. I suppose there are flowers, David. We're having luck with all kinds of things. It's a wonderful morning this morning. This is the most life I've seen on a bushwalk in, I think, months, or probably even over a year. But basically, we're sitting with probably some of the stinkiest flowers that you get out here. They're not the smelliest, but they do have a pungent odor, and they smell like stinky feet, don't they, Sebastian?
Yep.
Yes, Sebastian and I have decided stinky feet is what the terminalias smell like, and these are the flowers. So often we kind of talk about the smell, but we never really show you the flowers that produce this lovely odor that you get when you drive past these things. But essentially it smells like that basically to attract insects. So pungent smell will attract things like flies, but this particular case there's some beetles in there. Now I can't see what the beetles are. I can just see movement inside there and little black kind of beetles. I think Seb will do a much better job with the camera of getting a picture, and so maybe some of you can send me a screenshot and we'll try and kind of work out who exactly these little beetles are. But they'll be in there and they'll basically be doing the pollinating for this particular tree, much like flies would if they landed here, or any other kind of insect. As they go through the flower and they kind of walk through it, there's going to be pollen that's going to stick to them. They might then fly to the next tree and they will then help with the fertilization of said plant, which is quite interesting. Now, the problem with that is when you are flowering is it often attracts a lot of other insects, and you can see basically this poor tree is being absolutely hammered at the moment. It's being eaten left, right and center. Literally every single leaf at the moment has got some sort of damage to it, and I'm 90% sure that's because it's attracting a lot more insects, and therefore it's being fed upon a lot more than it would when it doesn't have these flowers. In fact, most of the time that you find these terminalias, typically they don't actually have leaves that are too badly damaged. They obviously get a lot of galls on them, which is from wasps and midges, that will basically sting the branches more than anything else, but the leaves themselves generally stay quite intact. But this particular tree is being absolutely hammered at the moment due to the fact that it's probably smells quite good and therefore attracting a lot more insects. Now, I was saying there's a lot of different things here, and on the other side, Seb said he saw a moth, so we're going to go around. We were talking about moths and butterflies just now, and so this will be a good opportunity to show you the difference between them. Seb, where did you see? Oh, there it is. I found it.
You see it?
Right. Now let's... Minamu, temperatures that butterflies need to survive. Well, I mean, it's more probably due to, in this area, it's not so much, sorry Seb, I think this side's going to be better for you if I just move this down. We're going to try and show you this moth that is inside. Oh, look, it's got an egg. It's been caught by a spider. Look at that. It's a crab spider that's got it. Shame, this poor moth has been grabbed. I thought it was just a moth that was sitting, and I was wondering why it wasn't moving, but look at that crab spider. That's amazing. That's a very, very big crab spider. You can see how it's camouflaged, so it's white, and that will basically be because it will sit amongst the little flowers and wait for things like moths and butterflies to come and feed off the little flowers, and then it can come out and grab it. That's crazy. Karen, exactly, a live kill. Wow, that's very, very cool. I was wondering what was going on. I thought it had like a little egg casing or something that it had laid below it, and then I saw legs, and it dawned on me that this is indeed a crab spider that it's got. That is absolutely insane. How cool is that? So these guys are masters of camouflage, crab spiders. What you'll find is that they'll basically kind of find any sort of flower or any sort of plant that they can then settle into, and you'll get various different kind of colors within the crab spiders. You get these white ones, you get green ones, you get ones that have a little bit of kind of mauves and pinks in them if the flowers are that way, and they'll then settle inside there. And like I say, as these unsuspecting insects come to feed off the sweet nectar of a flower, so they then come out and grab them. Exactly, Louis. The lion smelling the flowers can be dangerous, and feeding off them can also be, but that's absolutely insane. Now, it's got it, and basically it's pumping a whole bunch of venom inside there, which is going to help with the digestion of this large moth, but that's a really big spider is. Now, I know a lot of you are wondering how big it is. It's a bit tricky to show you because I had something else that I wanted to show you guys just now, but I also don't want to disturb it too much. But there's my finger to give you an idea. Now, crab spiders normally are quite small spiders. They normally about the size of my fingernail, whereas this guy's a lot bigger. I think it's probably a girl, actually, is a lot bigger. I don't want to disturb her too much, but let's see if we can just gently pull it up a little bit for Seb to be able to see it better. But there you go. There's that huge abdomen that they get. And you can see why they're called crab spiders, because they've got very much a crabbish appearance to them. They're very kind of rounded and wide, and then the legs come out to the side more than anything else. And so they get that sort of, for me, look very crabbish. But isn't that cool? Well done, little spider. You got yourself a meal. Sorry, moth. I know that it's not nice for you to be killed, but this spider has really gotten itself a good meal. And I don't want to disturb it too much, but we were talking about moths and butterflies just now, and it's what I was saying. I was battling to show you guys this because I actually found a butterfly, and this is a perfect kind of example. So this butterfly is dead before you think I killed it. We found it like this. This is a perfect way to show you the differences between these two. Now you can see when this one is sitting, if we compare this particular monarch, so this is the wing structure of a monarch that we've got. Now I just want to fold it over so that I can actually show you. This is the underside. Now you see the underside's generally much fainter, like I was saying to you. And what's interesting with this is if you look just in this little section over there, you'll notice that there is coloration that's missing and the wing has gone translucent. And that's because basically wings are covered in tiny little hairs. And if you rub the wings too much, those little hairs come off and you'll actually see the sort of membrane of the wing itself. And I was talking to you about the antenna, so you can see the little antenna with the little club end that we were talking about over there. And then you see this actually where it feeds. So there's its little tongue that it will stick down into a bush or into a plant to be able, or flower should I say, to get the nectar. So that's a little proboscis that is over there, and that will unravel and go in. And if I turn it over, you'll kind of see here the coloration within the wings itself is absolutely spectacular. So these monarchs, and you can actually see the little hairs that are coming down and towards me. Sorry, so I'm trying to keep this wing flat so it stops going up. But essentially you won't see butterflies resting like this. They will generally rest with their wings together, so they'll fold this wing up like that, and that's how they'll be at rest. Whereas you see with the moth that's been caught by the spider, its wings are settled over its abdomen, and that's how they will sit. Now this particular moth that we see here, its antennae are not very feathery like some moths are, but it definitely doesn't have that club end that you see on this particular monarch. So it's a nice kind of way to tell you the difference. Now what happened to this particular butterfly, I'm not quite sure. It's kind of been hollowed out, so I think maybe ants might have gotten hold of it. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, but we're going to put that back down because it's kind of trying to balance it. But this is so cool. I'm chuffed that we managed to find this, that's for sure. That's a really nice little find to see a spider on its meal. Just goes to show you, sometimes you need to stop and actually look at things. In the meantime, though, Jamie is still searching and looking, and hopefully she's going to get some leopard luck a little bit later.
Bushwalk really is. I mean, I like walking in winter because you actually really quite quickly because you can see far into the bush, and in summer you do have to be a bit more cautious, but there's just so much more to see. In terms of the little things, it's prettier, and there's insect life everywhere that you look, and of course arachnid life as well. But the thing about summer is that it comes with massively increased foliage, of course, which plays havoc with our signal. So candidly, I have to tell you, I can't fully search for Hosanna because it keeps taking me into areas where I vanish off your screens, which isn't ideal. But what I figured out is that he came from Treehouse Dam, so he actually walked into those baboons. Oh yes, I forgot about that. Last time you saw me, I found a tree. It was not a leopard, it was a tree. It was a brilliant spot of a tree. I mean, if you want someone to find you a tree or a stump, I'm your woman. Yeah, I'm sad we missed it too. Unfortunately, very uncomfortable signal area. So basically, the baboons were, if you imagine my hands, are various players in this mystery. Baboons were sitting in the trees. They started calling. The impala were alarm calling looking in that direction, but Hosanna's tracks, I'm pretty sure it's Hosanna, were coming in this direction. So he must have walked into the baboons, and then I don't know what he did from there. The impala were looking back into that drainage, so he must have turned and gone back down. But then how determined was he to get to where he was trying to go in the first place? Determined enough to sneak around the baboons? Or, as a young male leopard, is he going to try and hunt the baboons, which is possible. Or perhaps he just wanted to get away. I don't really know, and I'm struggling to double check because I can't hang around in that area. So what we'll do is we'll do one more loop around a road I know Hosana loves. We spent hours with him there, with him and Shongile on Elephant Carcass. It was one of the areas that Karula used to leave them regularly when they were little. And she'd leave them there for 2-3 days at a time, and we'd spend time with them looking down into the river system where they were playing. So he knows that road well, he likes that road. It's also one of Tingana's favourite spots, so it might have been his tracks I saw. I don't think so though. They don't quite look big enough for Tingana yet. Hosana's well on his way, but he hasn't reached his father's size, not even in shoe size. I don't know which way he went. We missed him by a cat's whisker. Apparently all of you saying that leopards are very exciting. They are very exciting. They're much more exciting when you actually see them. They're exciting when you don't see them, but they are very exciting when you see them. It's one of his favorite pans. I'm just going to go and drive around and show you all of Hosana's favorite places. How about that? Hosana likes this area. It is. It's like a celebrity tour. Celebrity tour of Djuma. There is a foam nest over there, as you can see. That, of course, is the nest of a frog. So it is a foam nest, a tree frog. They are, I think they're quite pretty little frogs. They're sort of nondescript and grey in colour, although that colour changes rapidly from dark coloured to light coloured depending upon the temperature. And they love showers. They love to perch in odd places. They are, of course, a tree frog. And they love to hide on... I've seen them perched very comfortably on a nail. So a thin nail sticking out of the wall was home to a foam nest tree frog for days at a time. Just to sit there with its legs all folded up and stare off into the distance. So they love showers. I think VM had a pet. Did VM have a pet tree frog at one point in the shower? I think it did. I think it even had a name. I can't remember what the name was. Now, they are called foam nest tree frogs, of course, because they produce this foam. So what happens is the lady goes along and she lays her eggs, and the males come along and they fertilize said eggs, and they produce a foamy substance which they, well, whip up into a froth using their legs, and they create these balls of foam which then protect the eggs and stop them as well from drying out. Then the eggs hatch and they drop into water. That does not work if the foam nest frog has not chosen a good puddle, because sometimes it goes for days without raining and the puddles dry up, and then the poor little tadpoles have nothing to drop into and they die. One more loop of that area. I'm going to go and find this leopard because he is evading me and it's annoying me. So we'll go across to David, who has a bird that is truly ubiquitous throughout Africa.
Well, keep trying, Jamie, and keep seeing trees. And sure, at one point, some of those trees might turn out to be Hosana. Who knows? And I'm looking on a dead tree here that is colored. I've got some flowers of 5 ibis. We've got the Hadada ibis there. I'm sure they're preening themselves, ready to face the day. Not sure we can get their calls. Let me see. You should go, Hadada, ha. And actually that's how they got their name, Hadada ibis. We've got 2 types of ibises here in East Africa, Hadada and the green ibis. Now these ones, not sure you should be able to hear them from there. Aha, and I mean the final control says just right outside there's one that's getting pretty loud. I wish I could transfer the call to here, because from where I am I can hear them call, But there's something very special with these particular birds. Anytime they make the calls, they are either perched up on trees or in flight. On the ground, we rarely hear them. They are very quiet. And the other day we were discussing, myself and my friend Tristan, why do you think the ibises or the Haddad ibis will never make any calls while on the ground, even when they are feeding or even when they have a party? And we concluded most likely they would want to keep away or hide from the would-be predators like the big eagles, who once in a while have been known to go for them. But they're very vocal when perched up on a tree like that or when in flight. Keep calling, keep calling. You notice how they blend in very well. Gus, that's a good question. I have not been following them very much to find out where they would nest, but the green ibis, those ones I know for a fact, they'll always have their nest on top of trees. And I would also imagine these ones too, that's where they would nest. But the green ones, I definitely know they always nest on top of trees. But feeding, they'll always come on the ground. You notice how long beaks they got, that they're very sharp, and they'll always be at puddles of water, getting all the invertebrates or crustaceans you'd think of, frogs, worms, a bit of fish, and you see them pushing their beaks right inside the mud, especially when the water dries up. Currently we have so many water ponds in the Mara Triangle, so they have bountiful of food to be feeding on. And because I think it's still cold, they want it to warm up a little bit, and the water ponds also, when they warm up, will get all the organisms living inside there getting also active and coming out, and then they'll be able to go and feed on them. So one is on the other side of the tree, while the other 5 are on the other dead tree, and I can see them either trying to shout. Is it 4 of those trying to intimidate the one on the right? Not sure why. Or it could be a youngster that's meant to be leaving the flock now and maybe going to start its own life. It's very clever how these birds, when they think one of them is fully grown, it's time to move on and go establish its own primordial family. Very good. Let me continue now with my mission of the pachyderms. I have 2 to go. I still have to get rhino possibly. I have to get buffaloes. Let's go to the gentleman who is tracking Tristan.
Well, good luck, David. I hope that you do find the rhinos. I know David loves looking for the black rhinos there, and it's so nice that we can show them. Now, we are looking at tracks at the moment. We're not looking at a track of a cat at this stage. We're looking at something a little bit different. So, as you can see, there's basically an animal that's walked from here. Here's the next gate and through. But it's a very easy track to tell, particularly this one over here is giving you a nice indication of what's going on. So, basically what you've got is you've got a pad over here, and then you've got toes that are kind of coming forward. This particular pad at the back is basically going to tell you exactly who this belongs to. So essentially you've got a kind of B shape at the back here, which is for a baboon, and this is its toes coming forward. Now, in the really hard sand, if you look at this track at the back here, you can see why sometimes people kind of see this track from a car and might think leopard or something like that, because those toes sometimes end up being incredibly rounded and difficult to kind of pick up, and so they sometimes can confuse people in hard sand, but most definitely baboon. What you'll find is that the back kind of foot is easy. Here is the thumb for that back foot as it kind of steps, and the toes haven't really registered all that well. But if you look at the back sort of foot, the foot starts over here, or the track starts there and it ends over here, whereas the front foot starts there and ends there. So almost half the size are in their front feet as their back feet, and it's because when they walk on their on their front foot, they're only using that part of it. They're not using the full hand. They only use the sort of this area, and on the back foot they're using the whole back or hope part of the foot to actually walk. So, Conrad, how do you distinguish between these and vervet monkey tracks? This is basically what I was going to get into with this bee. The bee that you see over here with a vervet monkey, that will be a V. So it's quite nice is that they tell you who they are. So that would be vervet monkey. And with the baboon, you get the little bee shape that we see here, essentially, on the back. And so if it's got that V pointy sort of back into it, then you know vervets. Also, obviously, vervets will never get this big. This is a track for a big baboon rather than a little baby. And actually, this particular baboon is not my friend at all. Yesterday, he tried to break into my room and cause havoc. Apparently, while I was on leave, they were here and they left things open and... Well, I must be honest, I know some people love them. I have very little time for baboons and quite glad that we do not have to deal with them all that from time to time that they get into our rooms, but it's not a hugely common occurrence, thankfully. I mean, some people live with baboons that have a lot of issues. Right, now we've got a bit of break, which is not ideal, so we're going to shake gremlins off. In the meantime, we're going to head up to Mara and see what David, if he's had any luck with his rhino.
Well, I've just been able to establish, because as soon as those Hadada ibis birds flew away, there was a small forest not far from them, and I looked carefully and I saw one of them going and laying on top of a nest. So I would be able now to establish, in general, I think I had a question from a viewer, where do the Hadada ibis nest? And I would say they will build their nests in trees, you know. They'll have little branches they'll cut, small little twigs, and then they line them up with any feathers they'll be getting, either feathers of their own. So both the Hadada ibis and the other ibis I was talking about, the green ibis, will build their nest in trees, which is quite exciting. That's I knew, and especially the rather rare one that is called the green ibis. The green ibis, those ones I definitely know, because they are more forest birds, so definitely they'll always build their nests in trees. But I've also been able to confirm, having that sighting, that the Hadada ibis will also build their nest in trees and not on the ground, which is pretty exciting. Now we've got some little bird of prey here. I'm not sure we have the Rosemary. Thank you. I got my lucky shuka with me, and let's see if we can see some bird of prey here, Rosemary. It's on top of a tree and taking quite an angle. And birds of prey in the morning, either they could be some kind of eagle, and I'm looking at it. Let me see what kind of an eagle it is. It is on top of that tortured tree. Let's find out who she is. Thank you, Rosemary. My shuka is always bringing me good luck. Are you facing on the other side? Yes, and that makes my life a bit difficult. But my guess is this is some sort of eagle, and I would call her a snake eagle from the angle or how she is patched up, like 90 degrees. I would call her a snake eagle. And looking at how she has angled her head, looking in one particular direction, because what we have is her back, my guess is this could be the black-chested snake eagle. Not 100% sure, but I wish I could see her front, but my guess is this is a front black-chested snake eagle. Now, when they prey or when they hunt for the prey, they tend to look in a particular direction and concentrate until they're sure what they want or what they're looking for. They need to get some proper depth of what prey they're looking at. And as the name suggests, they do more snakes for their food than anything else. But of course, if they get other reptiles, you know, lizards or skinks, they'll still be able to catch them. But they tend to eat more snakes than anything else. Not 100% sure, as I said, but I guess this is a black-chested snake eagle. And from the way she's looking or the way she's behaving, definitely she's concentrating so much in that particular direction, hoping to see a snake move And of course, before they go for the snake, they always have to be sure what type of snake. They need to know the length. They need maybe to know how big, and if they can go pick it up or not. Of course, big snakes like pythons, they will not bother. Great digestion system they get, because as much as they eat all these venomous snakes, it doesn't affect them, or they don't affect them through their system. And so long as they do not get the actual snake bite, eating the venom of the snake in general is always safe for these eagles. Hopefully she'll be lucky. It is, you know, we have always thought snakes are dangerous, snakes are venomous. It could be very difficult for them to tell, but I'm sure what I think they look at for is the size of the snake. And if they think they can handle it in terms of lifting it up from the ground, because most raptors, they tend to kill by, you know, forcing or seizing something or using some very strong force. And if they're sure they can do that, then they'll go for it. But big snakes, like, as I said, say for the African rock python, which are rather heavy for them, I doubt they would even bother. One, they're just too big and maybe not even easy to kill them. They also need to use their beaks to tear them apart, so they tend to look for smaller snakes. But whatever the size, they will go for them. The one thing I know about these eagles, they got wonderful vision. Their sense of sight is very strong. They can comfortably see a mile or two and be able to identify what snake they're looking for. And you might see her, for example, leave where she is, fly away a mile, as I said, or two, land on something, and that will be her snake. Aldine, yes, baying here in the bush, because what you normally have to look at, you'll have to look at that tree from a distance, Aldine, and then you realize that is not part of the branch, that's not part of the twig of that tree. There's something else that's not it, and definitely we'll guess it's an eagle. And actually that one there is a snake eagle. Thank you for that comment. And it's by living the bush for many years, you tend to pick up these sightings that are pretty special. Now you just look at her, she has changed her angle. Now she's looking on her right. She was initially looking on her left for a very long time, and she might remain in that particular position maybe the next couple of minutes until she's guaranteed, well, is it worth it? Did I see something move there? If I fly, what angle? And on landing, what momentum, what force do I land in? Because typically that's how raptors hunt. They need force, because they tend to seize. Raptor, I think, comes from the word rapere or rappel, which means grasping or seizing by force. Most eagles, that's how they hunt. They are not like, you know, egrets or herons, which are always very soft. When they go hunting, most raptors use force to get their prey. Well, let's go back to Tristan and find out how his tracking is going.
Well, we've just stumbled across a rather peculiar sight. It's another kill, unfortunately. I'm trying to hold the stick very still for Seb so he can film it, but an ant has been caught by, it looks like a spider, but I see almost little claws on it, which is quite interesting. Sorry, Seb, I'm trying to hold it still with the wind, because the wind is blowing it about, and I inevitably am moving as well, so making Seb's life very tricky. Oh, sorry, Seb. Let's see now if I do that, it's going to be a bit better. But essentially, it's ant that's been killed. I mean, with the naked eye, it's tricky. You guys have got the advantage of having a much bigger kind of image than what I've got, so I'm going to try and block the wind a little bit. Sorry, Seb, I know this is not ideal. Let's see if I can hold it steady myself. Right, there we go. That's going to be a brief shot that we're going to get. So it's tricky for me to really see what this is, but it does look like there's little pincers there, and you can see it's got a little web, so I think it's a spider, but I don't really know Yeah, I just don't know what kind of spider it is just yet. Like I say, it's one of these where it's a screenshot is going to be easier than for me to actually look with it. I don't have a magnifying glass with me. In fact, this morning I've failed myself badly. I've somehow misplaced my binoculars, so I don't have those with me. And I left my bag at home, which has got all the things that I normally use when it's summer bushwalk. And I've forgotten that this morning too. Oopsie. But anyway, the poor little spiders are going to have a meal. The spiders have done very well for themselves this morning, and it's this time of the year where spiders are going to be absolutely everywhere, and we're going to find lots and lots and lots of them, and you're going to find that they're going to be all over the place, and they're going to be really cashing in on this abundance of creatures that's going to be around, from ants to moths to butterflies to all kinds of different things that potentially can form food items for them. Anna Marie. I wish is the answer. I have not seen a single golden orb web spider yet. I absolutely love finding them. I think they're absolutely incredible spiders. Their webs are seriously beautiful. And you know, when you get that golden kind of light on them and those strands just shine, and then this big spider. Ooh, I think it's a very cool thing to see. So, now is probably not a great time to see the really big golden orb webs. They're still at the point where they are quite small. Remember that they basically are an annual spider, in that they kind of grow, reproduce, and do all of these things once a year, and then they die basically once they've reproduced. And so I would imagine that we'll start to see them probably end of Feb, beginning of March. We should start to see those really big females. What is nice though is that since it is that time of the year, there's lots of colour, there's a few flowers around. I was saying there's not many at this stage, but here is at least a nice example. It's one of the more common flowers that we see out here. Many of you will know this flower incredibly well. We've discussed it, I don't even know how many times have we gone through the fact that we see these blue comelinas, but there's lots of new viewers that probably haven't seen these, given that it's been so dry for quite some time. But blue comelina is its name, provides a splash of color out here in the wilderness, and always contrasts so nicely against the greens of the summer vegetation. Now, Comelina is the name due to the Comlin brothers, so 3 botanists that set out in life, and unfortunately 2 of them lived to a ripe old age and 1 didn't. And so the 3 petals that you have, you've got 2 big petals on top and then 1 at the bottom, which is for the brother that died younger than the other 2, is what they say is the case. Now, it's also called a wandering dew, not dew as a person, in terms of dew as the moisture. And often what you'll find is, if you have a look at this plant, is just underneath, there we go, there is a little kind of sac here, and if you gently squeeze this, I don't want to squeeze it too much because, there we go, you see there that there's liquid that comes out of it. And so dew is collected by this particular plant, and you can kind of harvest that out, and there you go, you can see it's very, very kind of liquidy. And especially if you've had a very dewy kind of evening, these generally fill up quite a bit, and you can actually get quite a bit of liquid out of them. But it's such a very pretty plant to have, and like I say, I always love their color that you get. And you get 2 different species here. You get this blue one, and you will get a yellow one as well, which is not quite as electric as this blue. This is a really kind of bright blue compared to the yellow one, which is a little bit more kind of mustardy than it is bright yellow. Anyway, we are still meandering. At this stage, I don't think we're even going to leave quarantine, because we've been finding so many interesting things, and we've been having discussions with Rex about the past and what quarantine was like all the way in the 70s, and it's really been kind of an interesting morning. And so while we do that, back across to David to see what he's found.
Behalf of activity, but now we've got a very special little bird here. I don't know if you can hear it. You can hear him calling. And I'm saying you can hear him calling because it's him. And this little bird here is called pin-tailed wider. Oops, don't go away. Where are you going? Right there. Oops. She keeps flying and going, coming back. Hopefully going to catch up with him rather. That's a very special bird, and he just appeared after the rains started. I think I've seen where he has gone, And it's called a pin-tailed white-eye. It's one of the most beautiful birds you'll see. Wow, let me see where he's going. He's right in front of us now. Let's see, he's right in front of the road there. And if you look at the two of them, you see that? You'll be surprised to know these are two same species of birds, and they're not any different. The same species, but they look very different. Very good. Thank you for following him. And he's in what you call a breeding plumage. And look at his tail. He's almost 3-4 times the body length of that particular bird there. And they'll have that long tail during mating time or mating season. And after the mating is gone, he is going to lose that tail. How wonderful is that? But you look at him carefully. When he flies, he seems to be struggling. And we'll see if we get a chance for them to pair up together and mate, which will be something very special. Well, let's first go back to Jamie. I think she got some exciting news.
Surprise! We have exciting news indeed. We have both Hosanna, and after no small amount of maneuvering, we also have Signal. So he's in the most beautiful spot down in the Muluwati riverbed. But unfortunately, as discussed, the density of the vegetation means that we don't have Signal down there anymore. And it's one of my favorite places on Djuma. And unfortunately, we couldn't get there. So the reason we've been absent for so long is we've been desperately trying our utmost to get down into or find ourselves some Signal. We had to climb up onto the bank in order to do so. So that took us a little bit of time. But there you go. Oh, lovely, lovely Hosanna. Enjoying a little bit of rest time. Well deserved, I imagine, after the past few days. Hey, little boy. Sharon, you say that perseverance always wins. There was nearly a moment where I made the wrong decision, and that was to go to Twin Dams. And the most embarrassing part was, as I was going down into this dip, I was so busy looking at tracks that I completely missed the leopard, and it was David who had to say, "Oh, I have a leopard. I can see him." So we owe our Hosanna sighting to Darby. Thank you, Darby. Well done. Much appreciated. It's admittedly not the best view we've ever had, but it is still Hosanna. It was so beautiful down in that riverbed. I wanted to be there. Ah, yes, look at that. I forgot about that impala skull. That was... Isn't that Karula's impala? I think that was Karula's impala just before she disappeared. She had it up in the jackalberry around here. Oh, what are we up for? If he gets up now and moves... Oh, hello, beautiful. I haven't seen him since I got back, so I'm very, very, very excited. Yes, my gorgeous boy. You're looking very well fed. No, I don't think... Well, Hosanna can be a morning person. I just think he's had a rather rough morning. First of all, he listened to our vehicle drive past him as he was walking along Treehouse Road. So we were in completely the wrong place. We would have seen him this morning if I'd gone there. And to add insult to injury, I have to just tell you this now. I've got to rip the plaster off. I've got to do it. The wonderful Dylan Leo Smith has sent me a photo of the hyenas at the den in Little Gowrie. I'm just doing it now. I'm getting it over with. It's pretty. Sorry, guys. So we found the den. It's on Little Gowrie. Such is life, I'm afraid. We'll just have to hope that they decide to come back to our side. I would show you the whole conversation I had with Dylan, but I can't because I responded in an emotional manner. So I can't show you the rest of that conversation, for it is not appropriate. Yep. Unfortunately, we have confirmation Thank you to Dylan Leo Smith, Brent's little brother. Thank you all for your condolences. I send my condolences back to you. And you know what's worse is that June's cub, if she has suckle marks, will be ready to move into the communal den shortly. Well, we will enjoy our time with Hosana. We will look on the bright side of things. And he's yawning, rolling around, or putting himself in the wrong place for the camera. That's okay. Oh, big sigh. Even Hosana's devastated at this news. Dave, I would move forward, but I don't know that I can. Yeah, I think I'm boxed in. Alright, I'm just going to do some chattering on the game drive radio to make sure that I get a vehicle in here in case he does move, because if he does, he's going to vanish. So while I do that, let's bounce you back all the way up to Kenya to find out if David's having a good morning.
Hosana, I think that was pretty exciting, and I'm sure Hosana is coming up to be a very big boy very soon. I was talking about that particular, what's happening here with my earpiece, that particular bird, and I thought if you see him on or with that long tail during breeding plumage, that tail is like 3 or 4 times bigger than or longer than the body, and it comes out very nice when you see him just flopping it in the air. And what happens is the females are able to choose what males to mate with, because when they fly they tend to struggle because of its weight. It keeps bringing them down, and the females will always look at them and decide, well, if he can manage to fly with such a long tail, definitely he must be a good male that will have, you know, nice genes, and the females will always mate with them. Very interesting. But as soon as the mating season is over, they lose the tail and then they look very different. The females, when you see them together without the tail, they also don't look the same at all. Very good. Now I need to look for 2 more big animals, either buffaloes or rhinos, because I think I did well with elephants. So it's be time I look for other bigger animals. Now I want to show you our escarpment from here, because I've always loved to see this escarpment. When the animals are not very cooperative, it's always good to look at the landscape and enjoy the views of the Mara Triangle. Many times you hear us talking about the Mara Triangle and you wonder what we are talking about, and look at that escarpment there. So anytime we talk of the Mara Triangle, that's one side of our triangle, which is the Ololo escarpment, and up on that escarpment is where we live. So from there we always have the best views of the Mara Savannah, which is what you see out there. And how beautiful is that? Well, my friend Tristan is also enjoying the landscapes at the moment.
Patch on quarantine at the moment that just looks absolutely phenomenal is this kind of carpet of flowers that are bright yellow, and when the sun comes out mixed with the green is seriously beautiful. And I'm hoping that we'll at some point get maybe one of our cats walking through here or something like that, because it's just the most epic backdrop. And this flower is something that we haven't seen too much of in the past. It's a flower that's essentially has kind of come up, and they do grow in disturbed areas, and so after the dry periods that we've had, we're starting to see them. And so puncture vine is one of its names that you can use. It also can be called devil thorn, which I know is confusing because we do get another devil thorn, and it's why when it comes to botany and insects, a lot of the time scientific names are used, because there's often so many different kind of plants that have the same name. So the scientific name for this is Tribulus terrestris. It is a plant that is used, got quite a few health benefits, funny enough. They use it quite a bit when it comes to reducing blood sugar, as well as cholesterol can be reduced using it. So it is got some kind of health benefits to it. Now, in terms of, apparently the animals also do eat this, so I've been trying to read about it quite a bit since I've been seeing it, is that the animals apparently do eat it as well. And it will help them too with their blood levels and blood sugar levels and all of those kind of things. But very pretty little yellow flower that it's got. It's supposed to have a little thorn somewhere in it, but I don't think those have arrived just yet. I think we're in the flowering stage at this stage. But Nila, you say they look a little bit like buttercups. They are incredibly beautiful, aren't they? I think it's a very, very pretty little plant. What I want to do is I know we're not really supposed to kind of pick these as that there's enough of them, but I want to show you this, and I want to show you the difference between this and the actual devil thorn that we normally call. And it gives you an idea of, like I say, of just how different things can be. So I'm going to keep it with me. We'll try and find the other devil thorn. There's lots of it on quarantine. Normally, in fact, where we're standing right now is where it grows, but at the moment, you've got this kind of flush of yellow, and when the sun comes out in the mornings, and this is just this beautiful kind of yellow gold kind of color, it's seriously pretty. You can see it just kind of expands across this section, which is probably the driest part of quarantine. This is often where the wildebeest roll around and zebras roll around and dust themselves and all kinds of other things in the winter months. So it's a far more disturbed section than everywhere else, but it's absolutely beautiful. This is the thing, is do a lot of the herbivores enjoy this flower? It doesn't seem like it's eaten extensively, otherwise we would see a lot more herbivores always on it, but I can show you, if you have a look here, is that there are wildebeest that are moving around in this area. Here's some dung for them that has been defecated at some point by these wildebeest, and so they are moving around within it. It doesn't seem like they're eating it too much, so even though I suppose animals can eat it, it seems as though they don't favor it too much in this area. It's probably something that hasn't really grown too well before, and you often get this in years, is that all of a sudden you'll have an outbreak of a certain type of plant or insect, and they'll eventually then, like, it's a seasonal thing, and then you don't see it too much, and they probably are preferring the little sweet tender grasses that are growing, like guinea grass at the moment. That's maybe what they are preferring rather than this. I would imagine this is something they would eat when they're a little bit more desperate, and there isn't as much food around. So there's definitely herbivores that are moving through here. We've seen impalas move through here, wildebeest. I'd imagine the zebras would also walk through here, no problem, but they don't seem to be chomping too much of it down. The carpet of flowers that you see, if it was really nutritious and really sweet, you would find the ellies would come in here and they would just strip this bare. They would get every single little flower and feed off them, as would the things like the wildebeest and the impalas. And so, because there's little of that, I wonder if it's maybe just not as palatable as many other things that we get growing out here at this time of the year. And remember that the rains that we've had is going to lead to an increase in a lot of grasses that are going to grow, and sweet grasses that the animals will absolutely love and enjoy. And so you'll find those grazing animals will go after that. So apparently Emma in Final Control says sweet grass sounds delicious. Emma, are you going to have grass for breakfast? Must I pick some for you? Grass cereal. Hang on a second, before we go any further. Exactly how would you make grass cereal? Because I'm intrigued by this now. Are you going to dry the grass before you eat it? Is it going to be wet grass cereal? So apparently one must dry it out, flavor it, which I don't know why you would flavor it, because surely the point of eating this is that it's sweet. But anyway, you're going to flavor it. Are you going to have, okay, but what kind of flavor do you want, Emma? Do you want chocolate? Like Frosties, so just sugar apparently. So it's going to be now sugary sweetgrass. And then apparently it needs to go into almond milk. It can't go into normal milk apparently, it needs to go into almond milk. Do you guys see? Yes, you did go on a downward spiral. I was about to say, do you see the things that we deal with here as presenters? This gets spoken in our ear daily, and we have to think about it. Right, now, the devil thorn plant that we know so well is this. Now you can see, look at the difference between these. These are in no way at all the same plant. And it's why, like I say, scientific names have become so important in the modern world, is because what's happened is a lot of the time people have given names in different areas, and then you get this conflict and this kind of sort of thing that looks said to be the same, but obviously is very much two different things. And so it's why bird names are all changed to go into line with what the world was using. So in South Africa, we had a lot of our own colloquial bird names, which have now been changed. But this is the devil thorn / many other names, puncture vine / all the others, and then this is the devil thorn that we know. This is the soapy one that causes a soap to form. It's a bit tricky now because it's not wet enough, but if I do it for long enough, it might. There's a little bit of moisture on there, but you can just see. Oh, it's not really enough, is it, Seb? Let's try and get some more moisture and see if we can get some sort of stickiness going. No, it's tacky on my hand, but not on the actual plant itself. So I'm trying to get a little bit more water and see. There we go. Now we're starting to get a bit more of a kind of froth going on it. But essentially, this acts as a little soap that you can put on, and actually even as a sun cream. So it creates a layer, this sticky layer on your skin that actually dries, not sticky at all, and that can then protect you from the sun as well as keep you nice and clean. Good. We're going to keep walking, keep seeing what we can find. In the meantime, back to Jamie and the little chief.
We have managed to achieve the almost impossible, and we found a nice view of our lovely Hosana, who's now starting to stir as the rays of the sun have taken away his shade. What's interesting is we often talk about the psychological advantage of height. Now, as you know, Hosana is the most relaxed leopard in the world. He really is. He is incredibly comfortable with vehicles, but what I've noticed from his body language is that if we move too fast up here, he's not frightened, but he does immediately look at us as if to say, what are you doing, what's going on, is there any sort of a threat to him? So it's just a nice little reminder that does play a role in our interactions with animals, and that being above them does give them a sense of slight, oh, I knew he was going to get up. No, don't do that. Don't go that way. I can't move. I can't move from where I am. I can't move because there's no signal. Well, we really tried. Wait, he's going to pop out here. Let's just see which direction he goes in. Maybe I can figure out a way, if he comes up here, of following him. I can see him going. Which way are we going? He's going up that bank. Okay, that's not a disaster. No, he's stopping to spray urine. I was hoping he was going to go up the bank. Come this way, my boy. Come on. You know you like Mamba Road. We like Mamba Road too because we've got signal here. Yes, all right, that will do. That will do. Okay. Well, thank you very much to Tristan and David, who've been handling most of the show in order for us to be able to bring you brief glimpses of Hosana. I have to move around now, which means I'm going to go through some bad signal patches. So while we do that, off we go across to David, and a big thank you to him.
Jamie, good luck, and hopefully gremlins don't keep following you on this new year. You need to do your thing that you usually do very well. I decided as I had said before, looking for big game today, and I got some buffaloes. I did the elephants. I was done with the elephants, and now I got a herd of buffaloes, and not a small herd, but a huge herd of buffaloes. But the most interesting thing that I found here are all these small egrets that are in the grass that are trying to move and taking advantage of these big animals moving out there. And I'm sure we know, as much as they don't have to depend on these animals to get food, they also are able to hunt for themselves. And today has been my big day of looking for big game. Yes, Emma, I agree with you. She says in the final control, I'm having pretty good luck, which is not bad. But as much as I wanted to see the buffaloes, I have this other extra bonus of these egrets, which are always whoops, while you're jumping up there. So what the egret does, as the buffalo moves there, the buffalo feeds on the grass definitely, and of course to be able to reach the grass, it moves lots of grass at the same time, and when moving it either with the mouth or with the feet, lots of insects will be jumping up and down, and this is what these egrets will be feeding on. And this reminds me of the cows back in my village. Every time we see the cows, it could be the same. Paula, you're right, and how are you this morning? And you'll see how they catch the insects here, Paula, and they straight swallow them. They don't even chew, and they're always very fast, these egrets. Any slight movement of the buffaloes, Paula, they'll take advantage of it. So they either wait for the buffalo to move the grass with their mouth or with their feet. So as again I was saying, it reminds me, or it takes me back to my village where I come from, and anytime we'd go grazing cows, would make a joke when you would not see egrets during the day, and you would wonder, these cows don't want to feed the egrets, so we would move the cows to areas where the egrets were, and you would see them coming together. We wouldn't call this a symbiotic relationship because I do not know what the buffaloes benefit from in this egrets. Egrets, of course, benefit as the buffaloes move the grass, but unlike the ox pickers that we see on top of these buffaloes once in a while, and that is a classical example of a symbiotic relationship, here the buffaloes do not benefit from the egrets. Oops. I've seen something interesting there happening, and that egret is so courageous, is just behaving like an oxpecker and is feeding from the skin of the buffalo. That normally does not happen. We rarely see that, but that was very special to see. Well, Tristan has been dealing with all small things since morning.
Well, that's very interesting, David. A couple of egrets picking off a buffalo is not something you'll see every day at all. But yes, we are looking at smaller things. We're looking at another butterfly, and this is a blue pansy that we are seeing now that is just basking in the sunshine, probably trying to dry the wings a little bit. With the heavy dew that we had this morning, it was quite damp, and so the wings get a little bit soggy and difficult for them to fly, and so they dry their wings like this, and then off they go and they start their day flying about. And you can see where it gets the name blue from. There's two little blue windows on the edges of the wings, or on the edges, in the middle of the wing, should I say. And they'll fly around and often find them like this, sitting on the ground. And then they'll take off, and they are very kind of alert butterflies. When it's cold in the mornings is the best time to see them because they sit for a longer period. But if you go anywhere near that, it will fly quite quickly and move off. And interestingly enough, pansies are often territorial butterflies, which sounds very odd given that they have a very short lifespan. But they will actually start to kind of basically chase away others and make sure that their little patch of ground is looked after and made sure that they kind of have it to themselves. So interesting thing to see. Very, very few butterflies are territorial, but these guys do it from time to time. So one time to time they are territorial animals, which is cool. But you can see it's literally just getting sun on its back, so it's positioned itself so that the wings are facing exactly where the sun is coming from, and those are going to dry it out. The problem is that it's still got a bit of shade that's unfortunately hitting it on some spots of its wing. It hasn't quite calculated this correctly. In maybe 10 minutes time it will be in full sunshine and the shade will have left it alone. But for now it's kind of going to have to deal with one wing being drier than the other for a little bit. But very pretty little butterfly, and you get both blue and yellow pansy in this area. And yes, Emma, it will be thrown off balance now. It will not be able to fly. No, of course it will be okay. It will eventually be fine. It's not like it's drenched. But what's interesting with these guys is their awareness to their environment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk, and you'll see my shadow is going to go towards where that butterfly is, and as soon as my shadow often passes them, they normally take off. So as I kind of go, you'll start to see my shadow coming through, and generally, oh, it's not doing it now. There we go. So you can see how the shadow triggers it to actually fly away. So they're very, like I say, very aware of their environment. Good. Well, we've had a fantastic time out on walk this morning. Hopefully you've enjoyed being with us and seeing all the little things. But we're going to send you to Jamie so she can finish off with Hosanna, and hopefully he'll be up to his usual antics.
We have managed to find Hosanna for the last few moments of your sunrise safari, and he is right next to the vehicle, and we have signal. It doesn't get much better than this. I said he was quite full. He actually could do with another meal. I'm astounded that his digestive system is able to work that rapidly to digest that enormous belly that he was sporting just 2 days ago. It just goes to show how incredible these animals are. You've got 30 seconds left of this sunrise safari. Let me try for one last view. I'm going to have to just go with this, David. There you go. You good? He is being thoroughly uncooperative, but never mind, because that's the way to finish off a sunrise safari, even if it spots through leaves. And it is truly the end. It's taken me by surprise, but we'll see you this afternoon for the sunset safari. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you.